Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm so excited to share new Christmas stamps from our friends at Creative Expressions. Today, we're going to play with 6 stamps. So we have Above the Rooftops, Follow the Star, Moonlit Gathering, A Sprinkle of Magic, A Wish at Christmas, and finally, we also have Bauble Pendant. Now you'll notice this is the only design that runs vertically. All of the other ones are going horizontally. Now these are gorgeous focal elements for your cards, and because they are so substantial, they'll work beautifully as backgrounds too. So each stamp measures about 7 3/4, 7.5 inches long, and about 3 3/4 wide or tall, depending on the orientation. Now these are a perfect match with the Stamperia Classic Christmas paper pack, and that's what I've been using today. This has double-sided sheets of 12-inch by 12-inch papers patterned with a really beautiful vintage style. Plus you also get some matching tags and cutouts. If you like an old-fashioned Christmas look, this one is for you. So as you can see, we have a lot to explore today. I've got 3 Christmas cards and 1 MDF tag to share with you. I am so very glad that you are here with us today. So come play with us. Before we start stamping, let's take a look at the stamps. Now they're rubber and they are going to come with a liner on the smooth side. So you just need to pull this off and discard it, and then you can adhere the stamp onto your block. Now, I am never without my MISTI for stamping projects, and a stamp positioner is really helpful when you're using really large stamps like we are going to today. And it's also helpful for doing a multi-inking technique, and we're going to take a look at that today as well. So you just need to place your stamp onto one side of your stamp positioner and have your paper on the other side over here held down with the magnets. Now you will want to make sure that you take out your foam piece from your MISTI, because that's going to make it possible for the stamp to rest in here perfectly, because these are thicker than polymer or clear stamps. So you want to keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm just going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to use the Seal Brown ink, and this is from Crafter's Companion. And I'm just inking this up, and I'm going to be stamping onto plain white cardstock. Okay, so I just need to make sure that I get my ink on here. If I miss any little patches, that's okay, because of course I know I can go back and re-ink and re-stamp if I need to. Okay, so I've got my ink on here, and then all I need to do is just close this up and press firmly. Make sure that I get all of the areas on here, and then I can lift, and you can see that I've stamped this sweet Over the Rooftops design. Now I see a few little white patches in here, which means that I can just re-ink my stamp and close this up again, give it another firm press, and I'll probably be just fine. So this is really a useful tool, especially with these larger designs. Now to clean off my stamp, all I need to do is grab a baby wipe, or you can use a little mist of water and a damp cloth just to clean this up. It cleans up really nicely and easily. Okay, so let's take a look at a card project using this design. So here we've got a really simple and festive Christmas design. This is using the Over the Rooftops stamp, and I've stamped this again with the Seal Brown ink. Now I've stamped this onto paper from the paper pack. So this border is already on the paper and then I've just stamped it directly above that. Now I've also done a lot of inking on the edges of the card, and this is using the metallic gold ink. This is also from Crafter's Companion. And I've inked around the outside edges with one of my favorites. This is the Butterscotch dye ink from Hunky Dory, so the Prism line. We're going to be looking at a couple more colors from this range as well. And this just gives a little bit of softness to the overall design and a little bit of sparkle as well with that metallic ink. The cutouts are all from the classic Christmas collection, and I've popped them up using foam tape. Now I also have a couple of little sparkles you can see on here, just worked in with the overall stamp design. And these are from the Desert Sky Shimmers collection, and I've just glued those right on there. For the card inside, I've added more pattern paper and a cutout from the collection. Now I did not cut this out. In fact, this is done quickly and easily using the circle and scallop cutting dies. So as you can see, this is going to give me a really simple and easy card inside. So these two just happen to match perfectly. And then I did the scalloped motif using some of the pattern paper. And again, a bit of inking around the edges and on this strip of pattern paper going across here. So this is just one idea with some simple stamping for a really fun and festive Christmas card. Let's take a look at another design. So I want to show you a simple multi-ink layering technique that gives you more options from your ink collection. Now you'll notice that my stamped image here has lots of blue, but probably when I tilt it, you can see the catches of gold metallic in here as well. So this is actually 2 layers of 2 different colors of ink. So normally you'd ink your stamp with whichever color you want and then press and you're done. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I can use my MISTI to perfectly restamp my image with different colors. So let's take a look at this process. I'm going to bring back in my MISTI here. Got my stamp all ready to go, and this is the Follow the Star stamp. Now I've got my paper on one side and I've got my stamp hanging out over here. I'm going to use 2 colors. I'm going to be using the French Navy, and this is another one of the Prism colors. And then I'm also going to use the metallic gold. Of course, metallic gold is perfect for Christmas cards, and blue and gold look beautiful together as well. So I'm going to ink this up first with my French Navy and just tap this on here. Make sure I get the camels, I get the palm tree, and I get all of those beautiful stars in the background, in the night sky. Okay, so I've got that inked up. And then, as usual, just go ahead and stamp this down. Again, making sure that all areas of the stamp come in contact with the paper. And then I can lift this off. Now you'll notice I don't have a perfect impression, but that's okay. That's kind of the point here. So what I'm going to do is just take a dry cloth and clean this off. Clean off most of the ink here. And then I'm going to add my gold on top. So let's get this all off as much as we can. And then come back in with my gold. Now, the French Navy is a dye-based ink, and this gold is a pigment ink. So we're mixing colors. We're also mixing styles of ink. So this is going to be pretty cool. Okay, so I've got the gold inked up here. And then same process. I'm leaving everything in place. And I'm just re-stamping on top. Now in this case, I want to add a little more pressure and make sure that I've got all of those areas covered. And again, lift off. And now I've got hints of gold in around here, and of course that beautiful blue underneath. Now if I'm thinking I could use a little bit more gold on here, just keep everything in place. Grab that gold ink pad and come back and add your ink. Now, if you wanted to, if there were only the stars that you wanted to have inked in gold, you could isolate some different areas as well. So keep that in mind too. Okay, so here we go. Now I've got some more gold on here and I can really see areas on here too. So I've got some beautiful color and shine. Now let's take another look at the card here. I'm going to bring this back in and we can see the overall design. Now, with these large designs being as beautiful as they are, you can use them in their entirety, but you can also cut them apart and use them in smaller areas. So here I've mounted just one portion of the design, layered it onto the pattern paper background. Then on the inside, I used the other half of the design. And it's a nice way to continue the theme and style of the card front onto the inside. So I have another card I want to show you using the same technique, but in a more subtle way. In fact, it's quite subtle. So in here, I'm simply combining two ink colors to make a third ink color. And I've done this on the background piece using the Wish at Christmas design. So originally, I tried stamping this with my favorite, butterscotch, but it was just a little too butterscotchy. So then I tried some other colors. I tried black, I tried the navy. Nothing really worked. Nothing gave me that soft look that I was going for. I really wanted it to coordinate with the background pattern paper here. Now, what happened then is I overstamped using a second color, and I used the sage gray, and this happened to give me the look that I wanted. So I'll show you a swatch, and this may make it a little bit easier to see. So here's my butterscotch, and you can tell it's quite butterscotchy. Here's the sage gray. It was just too light. It wasn't working. But here's what it looks like when I stamp the sage gray on top of the butterscotch. It gave me just this same effect that I wanted. It's soft, it's subtle, it's got a really nice kind of vintage look to it. So this is an easy way to combine two different colors, and it's a great way to do your double stamping to create a third color from two colors that you have in your stash. Okay, let's take another look at this card. So again, I've used the circle scallop dies to create this focal. So here's a cutout, which I've actually cut out around these scalloped areas and then mounted it onto a die cut. And then I've got some extra desert sky shimmers here in the background, some larger pieces and some smaller ones as well. It gives a little bit of extra sparkle. This is mounted up on foam tape, and I used a little bit of jute here as well. Now for the card inside, I have the Sprinkle of Magic stamp, and I've stamped this in the same multi-ink stamping technique, and then another cutout from the collection. And so, of course, you can use the two different stamps from Creative Expressions for the inside and the outside of your card as well. Okay, so this is the multi-ink layering technique. Let's take a look at one more idea. I have one more project to share with you today, and this is a fun variation because the surface is not a card, but it's an MDF tag. So MDF is a hard, durable surface, and it's made of wood fibers and can be cut into lots of different shapes like these tags. So the tags are from Sticks 2, and they measure 3 inches across by 6 1/4 inches tall, which means that they're great for either tying onto a gift package for something extra special or as an ornament. So for this tag, I've stamped and heat embossed the baubles design onto pattern paper and then painted in the image. And the paper that I'm working with is from the Classic Christmas collection, but it's got quite a distinct design on here. Now, if I'm stamping directly on here, it's really going to compete. Those two patterns are going to compete quite a lot. So the way to get around that is to use a little bit of white paint to mute back that pattern paper and give a really nice surface for stamping onto. So let's take a look at that process. I'm going to move aside my tag, and I'm using the Dylusions white linen paint for this, and I'm just going to put a little bit onto my craft sheet here. You don't need a whole lot. I'm going to grab my well-used brayer, just roll this through that paint, and then roll it right onto my pattern paper. And I'm going to blend this out. I don't want to obliterate the design entirely, but I do want to really mute that back so I've got a nice surface for stamping onto. And then I'm just going to grab a baby wipe, a damp baby wipe, and then just gently blend this if I've got a little bit of extra paint on here. Like so, and that's going to give me a soft and muted look. So you can still see that there's a pattern on here, but it is nicely softened. Okay, then I just need to let this dry and I can do my stamping and my embossing. So I'm going to clean this up off of my craft sheet, set this piece aside to dry. You can also speed up the dry time with a little heat tool if you want to. I've got a piece that is already dry and ready to go. So the next part of this process, again, using my MISTI, I'm going to stamp and heat emboss this. So I'm going to be working with my Wow embossing ink pad. And then I've got on hand my Stampendous embossing powder using the clear bark color. This is going to give me a really nice soft design. So what I'm going to do is move aside some of these things I've got here. You can see I've got my muted pattern paper on here. I've got my stamp on the other side. And I'm just going to ink this up with my embossing ink pad. Now I know it's tricky because you can't see it, but you will see it once I add that embossing powder on there. Okay, so I'm just going to close this up and again press to make sure that I've got contact here with all of the area. Okay, open this back up again and slide aside my magnets. Now I've got a piece of just scrap paper. This is going to catch my excess embossing powder. I just need to pop this in here, grab my embossing powder, and then add this right on top. And you can see I've got my design on here. Now I'm not too worried about this top area here because it won't all fit onto that tag. I'm really more concerned about making sure I've got this overall design here. So I'm just going to tap off the excess and I'm going to move aside some of these elements, pull in my heat tool and heat set this. So my design has been stamped and heat embossed and I've got a really beautiful raised tactile image on here. Now I could leave this as is, but I wanted to add a little bit of color and enhance those baubles just a little bit. And this is where my dye inks are going to come into the picture, as well as some water brushes. And working onto my craft sheet, what I'm going to do is create a palette with these 4 inks. So I'm working with the Rainforest Green, I have Canary Yellow, Dusky Rose, and Red Brick. So what I'm going to do is just press the ink right onto my craft sheet. So here's the yellow. I'm going to add the dusky pink here, and then the red as well. And I've got a cup of water over to one side, and I'm just going to get my water brush wet. I'm not squeezing the water out through the barrel. I'm really just using this like a paintbrush. And I'm going to start with that canary yellow, and I'm just going to paint right over the embossed image. And you can see how that really pops out. Now, because this is heat embossed, I've got some raised edges, which is going to hold in the color. It also means that I can go over the design and not worry about any of the ink smearing. Okay, so I'm going to rinse off my brush and then come back with another lighter color. And this is the Dusky Rose. Let's see, I'll do this one here and paint this in. And again, just letting the raised edges of these baubles just guide the brush along. You don't have to be a painter for this technique. So there you can see I've got another bit of color showing up. And then let's get some of this Rainforest Green. You can see how that embossing is acting as a resist. So color this in. Just rinsing off the brush in between colors. And then here's some of that red. And add a little bit on here. It's going to give some more definition as well to some of those baubles that are a little bit open-ended in some areas. So there you can see quickly and easily I've got some color on here. Then all I need to do is just let this dry. And the water brush is perfect for this. It's really going to give some easy color. You don't have to worry about wooden paintbrush handles because the plastic is going to hold up really nicely. And then at the end, you've got your painted embossed design. Now, When you get ready to glue this onto your MDF tag, and I do suggest you do all of this process before you adhere this onto your tag, I like to use the extra sticky tape for this, and I just put some of the tape down onto the tag and then position this on top, really smooth it down, and you're ready to go. Now you'll notice because I've done heat embossing, I've got the paint on here, I've got the dye ink, this is a little bit wavy. So what I like to do is just put this under a stack of books or even under my MISTI for a little bit, and that will flatten it out and it'll be even easier to use. So now back to my tag, you can see here I've added a sentiment, a cutout going across the bottom. That's up on foam tape. I've also used a lot of that metallic gold ink around the outside edges. I've got some gingham ribbon and a little bit of jute twine here, and it makes just a really sweet little festive Christmas tag. So with this last project, I think you can see all of the various ways that you can put these fantastic stamps to use. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're really glad that you're here with us. I can't wait to see what you create, so do be sure and drop us a note, leave us a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.